What's up, everyone? It's AG Reviews, back at it again. I just got the chance to see the new film, The Housemaid, so let's talk about it. So, The Housemaid is an adaptation of a book that actually only came out 3 years ago, which I found very interesting of a fact about this film. Because typically, when you do a book adaptation, the book is usually out for a significantly longer time than that before they go in and do a movie adaptation. So I thought that was very interesting about the movie. I'll be honest, I've never read or even heard of the book. Even the books I do read, definitely not in this vein of this type of story for me personally. So yeah, I have no prior experience or knowledge of the book itself. So I went into this film completely fresh, completely new opinion about this story in particular. And then also too, when it came to my expectation of this film going into it, I didn't really have too high of expectations. Obviously, I had seen the trailer in front of a bunch of other movies before, but what really piqued my interest with this film was once they started showing the early screenings for it, and I kind of started getting that early buzz on the film, and a lot of it was very positive. So that really piqued my interest. I think the cast that's involved with this film are all pretty good actors, so there I was piqued on interest when it came to that. But I didn't really have too high of expectations going into this movie. And I gotta say, it actually really delivered and is gonna end up being one of my biggest surprises in 2025. And to start off with my positives for the film, this is a throwback to like 90s style thriller romance stories, and I'm here for it. These types of movies typically do not get a big budget theatrical release in 2025. A lot of these types of films are kind of limited for like streaming movies and stuff like that. So you don't really see these types of films nowadays get a big budget theatrical push like this film has done. Now, obviously, I think the star names involved with it. Obviously, you got Sydney Sweeney, Amanda Seyfried, Brandon Sklenar. I think having those names attached to it allowed for it to get that type of push and get a big theatrical release. But I'm all for that. I mean, I grew up on these types of these films, in the 90s, in the early 2000s. And I really like seeing these types of films garner attention and garner positive buzz in the hopes, obviously, that we can get more films like this in the future. And obviously, the nature of the story for this film and from the book that it is adapting, there are a lot of twists and turns. So it's going to be hard for me to really fully review this film without getting into spoiler territory, which I don't want to do. But I think that the twists and the turns really adds to the experience with seeing this film. They very slowly reveal things to you throughout the film, so you don't get everything all in one big twist or anything like that. It just slowly builds throughout where you get little nuggets of information here and there to finally fully understand, what's going on. And then obviously you get the payoff once we get to the third act of the film. But I really liked how it slowly built to that moment rather than kind of, because in the beginning, you can clearly tell something's up. Something's not right here. Any sane human being that would be in this situation would want to get out. But Sydney Sweeney's character, they do lay out very well why she's in this situation and why she can't really leave. So I really liked the way that the narrative slowly reveals things to you. It doesn't just put it all out there right away. It builds a sense of mystery. So when you get to that third act and you finally do get all the answers of what's going on, it is in a satisfying way and results in a satisfying conclusion for the film. And then also, I have to say, with the way that happens with the plot and the narrative of the film, it did create for some pretty good audience reactions. I went and saw this, today's Sunday. I went and saw this at a matinee at my local theater, and even still, it was pretty packed, and the audience was into the film and was reacting to what was happening on screen, which you don't really get that too often, and especially not with this type of movie, at least in my opinion. But the way the narrative plays out allowed for those natural audience reactions to happen, and creates a really good time at the movies. I also believe that the marketing of this film did a really good job at not leading on to the big reveals of this film. Now, again, I know that this was adapted from a book, so obviously people who read the book are gonna know the twists and turns of the story. But for people like me who didn't know the source material, and for the casual fan that's just going to see this movie, on opening weekend, I think the trailers did a really good job at hiding those twists and turns and not giving too much of the movie away, which you can't really say about a lot of trailers and marketing nowadays for films like this. So I really appreciated that the marketing didn't just put everything out there and kind of do what they normally do, where they give you a trailer that's just basically a summary of the entire movie. That also added to the suspense and to the twists and turns to be much more effective. I really think what we got here from the three leads of this film was exceptional. Like I said, Sydney Sweeney, Amanda Seyfried, and Brandon Sklenar all did fantastic in the film. I think Amanda Seyfried, though, was the standout. She really had a mix of emotions and ranges that she had to hit in this film, so it really felt like a complete performance from her. And then I also felt like Brandon Sklenar, too, did a really good job at playing the character that he's supposed to play in this film, kind of being like the, elitist, rich husband. I felt like he gave some really good nuance to the performance. Sydney Sweeney did a good job. I don't think she was bad in the film by any means, but her character, the way she's written, isn't as, like, charismatic or screen popping as Amanda Seyfried and Brandon Sklenar. I just think that's the writing. I don't think it's her performance or anything that causes her character to feel that way. Her character is just kind of the more normal one out of these three, so it kind of comes off a little bit less charismatic because of that. But I don't think it's her fault. I think it was just the way the character was written. And I think them all three together bring different pieces to the puzzle of this film and all give really good standout performances. And I'm looking forward to seeing what all three of these actors are going to do in their future. And then I didn't know that this was directed by Paul Feig until really I saw the movie and it was in the credits. And obviously, I'm very mixed on him. I don't particularly really like his work. Obviously, the two biggest examples are Bridesmaids and the 2016 Ghostbusters remake. Bridesmaids, I know that one is pretty highly praised. It's not a film for me. I'll just be honest with you. It's not one that's meant for me or meant to appeal to me, so I wasn't a big fan of it. And then obviously the 2016 film of Ghostbusters was a disaster. So I haven't really gotten anything from him that I've really enjoyed, but this by far to me is his best film. And I think it's because he does, as the director of this film, I think he does such a good job at finding that balance between the thrills and between the comedy. Nothing on either side is overdone, and I feel like the balance there was really effective because you don't really sit in the thrilling moments for too long, and then they don't overdo the comedy either. It's just kind of sprinkled in throughout to give moments of levity in certain moments that are a little bit darker in this film. So I really want to commend Paul Feig and say that this is definitively my favorite film by him. So if he, he's going to continue making films like this, I'm all for it. I'm down, and I like the direction that he's going here. And to kind of wrap up my positives, I really think this is a great date night film. And the reason for that is because I think that this film can appeal to everyone. I think there are things in here that are meant for women and then also for men. So I think there's a really good balance here And everyone who goes and sees this film is going to get something out of it and get enjoyment out of this film. I think it is a film that actually does appeal to a broader audience. I don't know if it was marketed that way, right? I don't know if that's who's. I don't think all types of demographics are going to go see this film, but I think if you do give it a shot and you go see this movie, everyone who goes and sees it at least is going to get enjoyment out of something from this film. So that's why I would recommend it for sure as like a date night film. I think that would be the best way to get enjoyment out of it. So like I said earlier in this review, I am very positive on this film. I really don't have a lot of negative to say about it. There was a couple of things that bothered me a little bit. The first is kind of that obviously with the nature of the plot here, having so many twists and turns, it does get a little contrived with how things happen. In ways that are a little bit unbelievable. Like there's certain things that kind of just fall into place for the story to play out the way that it does, that I don't think make entirely a bunch of sense. Again, don't want to go into spoilers, but yeah, there was a few issues what I had of things being very convenient with how they played out. And then the only other thing that I can say that I had a little bit of a problem with is once you kind of get the full reveals of what's going on in the film, towards that third act, when you kind of think back to how some characters were acting and how their interactions went with other characters, it kind of makes you a little bit like wondering like why was this person acting like this. And in my mind and the way that I kind of took it is that they were only doing that to kind of throw you off of the scent of what was really going on and stuff. So that kind of, I think maybe on a rewatch that will be a little bit more prevalent. But I didn't really like that. And again, I know I'm dancing around here, but I really don't want to spoil anything when it comes to the plot of this film. But yeah, it just felt character decisions were a little bit weird once you get the full picture of what's actually going on here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me, guys. I really enjoyed this film. This is definitely going to be one of my bigger surprises of 2025. This was one I went in with relatively low expectations, and it actually delivered a very fun time at the movies. It's crazy, but I think this is way better than Avatar Fire and Ash was. So to me, it wins the weekend. Box office wise, it probably won't, but I think when it comes to the quality of movie, I think this is the best movie that you could go see this weekend, which I think if you asked me that a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if I would have said that. So definitely a surprise for me, and one that I would recommend, maybe going out with your significant other and having a good date night. So if you guys have seen The Housemaid, go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you thought about it. What was your expectations, to anyone out there who read the book, and was it a faithful adaptation? That's kind of something that maybe I might consider go back and might read the book. Anyone who's read it, let me know what you thought. And besides that, everyone have a great weekend.